Morning, all. All right, so Monday morning. Today we just have the one game in the National Hockey League, so I'll do the preview here as part of the news video. It's Philadelphia against Chicago. Uh, I don't know. I'll have some fun with this one because obviously they're both like miles out of the playoffs, and this isn't really an important game for either team. So it starts at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, so it's a later start too for just the one game. They played March 5th. That was a 4-3 win for Philadelphia. So we'll see if they can win this one. They have remarkably similar records. Philadelphia 25-43-11. Chicago 26-42-11. So very, very similar records. If you look at their goals for and goals against, the Flyers are scoring 2.62 goals per game. Chicago 2.60. Goals against per game, Philadelphia 3.58. Chicago 3.57. So, yeah. Atkinson, 23 goals, 27 assists. Been one of the more consistent players for Philadelphia this year. Provorov, I think, has been good, although you can check and see whether or not they mention Matt Niskanen during this game. If they mention Provorov, 9 goals, 20 assists, 29 points, it gets mentioned a lot. Philadelphia is only 39 points behind Washington for the final playoff spot. Chicago, their leading goal scorer is DeBrincat. He's been fantastic. 40 goals, 36 assists, 76 points. And there's no complaints about Kane's play either. 26 goals, 65 assists, 91 points. This team sits 30 points behind Dallas for the final playoff spot in the West. So that's your game tonight. Let me know your winner in the comment section below. Speaking of winners, Ryan Getzlaf goes out on his own terms. He is not going to play for the Anaheim Ducks for their final 2 games on the road. So he finishes it up at home. 1,157 games played, 282 goals, 737 assists, 1,019 points. Excellent career. 2007 Stanley Cup. Really, there isn't much more to say than that. Getzlaf, likely a Hall of Famer. A question that I think we'll see the answer to once he becomes eligible. We'll see, does he get in, does he not? Is it first ballot? When is it? I do believe he gets in, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's first ballot. Your Masterton Trophy nominees were announced today, so every team puts up their Masterton nominee. Notables on the list: Carey Price for Montreal, who of course has been dealing with a knee injury the whole year. Ryan Getzlaf, who's retiring and has had a very long, decorated career. Anthony Duclair in Florida is an interesting one because he absolutely has shown his dedication to hockey, going through team after team after team, and now Florida is absolutely the perfect place for him. Brian Boyle is one that I think could win this one because he took a year off and then he came back and he's played well for Pittsburgh when he's been in there. And Eichel for Vegas, who of course went through neck surgery that was the first of its kind for a National Hockey League player. And now he's back and playing. And Nick Backstrom out of Washington as well, who's dealt with injury issues and he's past the 1,000-point mark. So it's going to be interesting to see who ends up getting it. It may not be anybody on this list. The 32 players are available through almost any NHL site at this point in time. Because when they bring up the Masterton nominees, there's always the discussion of who deserves it, who doesn't deserve it, and who got snubbed by their own team. Alex Ovechkin is seen as day-to-day with an upper body injury. Looked like his shoulder to me from the way he left the ice. He did not return to that game against Toronto last night, and as I said in the review, if Washington's without Ovechkin for any period of time, that is absolutely going to damage their chances in a first-round series, especially if they do draw Florida. Florida is going to be a team that scores a bunch of goals in the playoffs in all likelihood, and so you need goal scoring to counter that. And without Ovechkin, that would seriously hurt the Capitals' chances. Speaking of injuries, Ondrej Kase, who is the nominee for the Masterton for Toronto, he's hoping to return for the playoffs. So the plan is to get things all set up and get him back for the playoffs. I've got my fingers crossed for that one because Kase can be a very useful player. Third line, he can play top 6 at times as well. And I think Toronto fans have seen this year Kase's able to put the puck in the net. And they do need that depth up front if they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs. On the Ottawa side of things, Connor Brown is done for the season, and then DJ Smith also confirming that Shane Pinto is not going to play the rest of the year. I think we knew that anyways. Here's to hoping Pinto is healthy and good to go for next season. But yeah, Connor Brown being done for the season. It's a shame he's not healthy to finish out the year, but he had quite the season, and I'm glad he's still in Ottawa. Very useful forward and excellent penalty killer. So the race in the West. I keep seeing people saying, well, Nashville's got a tough schedule down the stretch, so, Nashville's not home and cold yet. But I think they are. So right now they have 94 points in 79 games, 44-29 and 6 record. They have 35 regulation wins, which is a tiebreaker they have on Dallas, who they're 1 point ahead of. They have 2 more regulation wins than Vegas. But, of course, Vegas could win 2 in regulation, tie them, and then what happens? Well, what happens is then you go to regulation and overtime wins. You go to the row column, and in that, Nashville has 41 and Vegas has 38. So basically, it just comes down to Nashville, in my mind, only has to win one of its final 3 games. They're at home against Calgary next, then they go to Colorado, and then they go to Arizona. So if they win one of those 3 games, and we've seen Colorado's taken their foot way off the gas at this point in the season, they're just looking at the playoffs. Arizona, of course, been some rough results for them over the last few weeks. I don't think Nashville is in any danger of missing the playoffs. Dallas, on the other hand, we'll see. The good news for Dallas is all 3 games are at home. They do tend to be better at home than on the road. Last week proved that. 79 games, 44-30 and 5 record for 93 points. They have 30 regulation wins, which is 5 less than Nashville and 3 less than Vegas. And that's why the concern has been if they're tied with Vegas, Vegas gets in. They have 40, though, in the row column, regulation and overtime wins, which is more than the 38 that Vegas has. So they win a lot in overtime. They do, which is great and it's exciting, but it doesn't help when it comes to playoff positioning and all that. They have 14 regulation and shootout wins, which I think is still number 1 in the league. I know it was number 1 in the league. I think it still is. But for Vegas, really, that point they gave up against San Jose last night, that hurts. They have 90 points now in 79 games. They're 3 points back of Dallas. 42-31 and 6 is their record. As I said, 33 regulation wins, which is better than Dallas. But let's say they go into Dallas and they win in overtime. Then they're 2 points back of Dallas with 2 games left. So they have to win that one in regulation, and then they need help. And for the Dallas Stars, they're at home against Vegas, of course, tomorrow. Then they have Arizona and Anaheim. And it's going to be Anaheim without Getzlaf, and an Anaheim team that, is playing like a team that gave up at the deadline. And Arizona, as I said, with Nashville. Yeah, the Arizona Coyotes could help to put Vegas out of the playoffs by losing their last games here. So we'll see whether or not they play spoiler, or if they say, nah, it's fine. I have no idea how this is going to turn out for Vegas. So it's not that easy, because they're at Dallas first. Then they go to Chicago, and then they finish the season against St. Louis. And, of course, the St. Louis Blues are still playing for something right now. Whether they are or they're not on that final night of the season, we'll see. And I know Winnipeg and Seattle play this weekend, but the season finishes on Friday. The NHL finishes collecting its attendance revenues for the regular season on Sunday. But yeah, that game against St. Louis, that could be an important one for the Blues. And if it is, and it's a home game, Vegas is up against it. So, that point they lost last night really hurt. It doesn't take them out of the race by any stretch. But I think it's pretty clear that Leonard's hurting. He hasn't played games that we know he would have played if he was 100%. And again, and I said this in the review last night, I've been saying this lately, I don't know what's going on with Stone, but he is not Mark Stone out there right now. He hasn't had a point since his return. So, yeah, for Vegas, it definitely looks like the odds are against them right now. They're listed on Money Puck as having 13.5% chance of making the playoffs. I believe going into last night, that was about 30%. So, yeah, it's definitely dropped. For Florida, Florida news from today coming out of last night's game with Tampa, the automatic suspension has been given to Ryan Lomberg. Lomberg gets that 1-game suspension because he got an instigator penalty in the final 5 minutes, which means that it was reviewed and that the league said, yep, Department of Player Safety said, yep, that was a legit instigator. So he gets that, and then Andrew Burnett has been fined $10,000. Now, immediately I saw people asking, well, what is this? Why do players get fined $2,500 and coaches get fined $10,000? The coaches are not part of the NHLPA. So the coaches can absolutely get more of a fine than players. They're not in the NHLPA. There's no. That's why they always say in the fines the maximum allowable under the CBA, because that's the maximum allowed under the collective bargaining agreement. And so yeah, Lomberg's been, and that's automatic. Lomberg gets suspended. Burnett gets fined. It's Rule 46.21 if you want to go look it up. The rule book's really kind of dry when it comes to the NHL. That's why I've always kind of, played around with the idea of doing videos about the rule book and everything, but it really does get kind of dry in places. So anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.